Okay, we're live.
Right. Great. I'd like to call to order the April 7th meeting of the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. Ms. Brudno, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Rankin.
Here.
Mrs. Garvey.
Here.
Mrs. Bendel.
Here.
Mrs. Brose.
Here.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Here.
Good. If you could all join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes for March 3rd, March 18th, March 27th, March 29th, and March 31st.
So moved.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sharon. Is there any discussion with those documents?
That's a lot of minutes.
As it is. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Brudno, if you'd please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Brose.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Now we will move on to board committee updates. So Mrs. O'Toole, if you would update us for audit committee and board policy committee.
Okay. No report for audit committee this month. Moving on to policy committee. The policy committee met Thursday, April 1st, 2 p.m. We reviewed the policies that OSBA suggested we review in the February Policy Development Quarterly. The recommended changes are on for first reading tonight. And I did provide you guys a summary of what the changes are. They're very minor wording. And for policies, we are on to rescind because they no longer apply. They were the things that from the Family First Coronavirus Act that expired in December. So when we get to the policies, if you have any questions or if you want to ask me any now. No. And I thank Lori for attending the policy committee meeting. So unless there's any question, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Garvey for business advisory, capital planning, board finance, and budget.
There's no report for business advisory this evening. I do have a report, though, for capital planning. The Board Capital Planning Committee has a meeting tomorrow, April 8th at 4 p.m. via Zoom, and we will review the facility projects for this summer and into the next fiscal year, as well as potential funding and accounting measures for the transportation garage. For the Board Finance and Budget Committee, Mrs. Brudno, is in the process of pulling together a meeting for early May so we can review her 5-year forecast update. So
Okay.
more to come on that, but that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. We have no report for no update for records retention. So at this point, I will turn over the meeting to Dr. Hunt.
Good evening. Thank you. Just a couple of updates for the Board of Education, and certainly happy to answer any questions you might have. You may have seen in your inbox that we sent out an email to our parents this afternoon regarding gauging interest in participation for students that are 16 years or old, between 16 and 18 years old, to receive the Pfizer vaccine with parent permission. I think the governor's kind of heading in the direction where he's got large clusters of folks, of colleges, universities, schools, to try to get them vaccinated before the end of the school year. So the initial communication came from Geauga County, but just encourage all of our parents to consider this. and respond to the survey that was put out by Geauga County Health Department. One point of clarification there, although it's county health departments, the goal is the state of Ohio to vaccinate people, right? So if you live in Cuyahoga County and you receive that survey, we encourage you to fill it out if you'd like your child to receive a vaccine. So I don't have much more than there's an interest in doing it. They're gauging the interest to see if they probably have enough supply. And if so, we will certainly try to push forward and move forward to make that accessible to our students. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions on the student vaccine?
Just point of clarification, are you envisioning it would look similar to how it happened for the staff, that there would be access for the Chagrin School as a whole? Okay.
Yeah, I will certainly would like that, just from ease, the ability to pull that off. I think it'll probably depend on numbers and where they come in the county, but we'll certainly offer our facilities to do that. The other thing is just to keep on your radar. We have continued to move forward with planning around prom and graduation. There were some potential issues with our venue for prom. It seems like that has resolved itself. So we'll be rolling out information to our students regarding prom as well as graduation. We're currently operating under the guideline. It's much like what we had for fall sports at the stadium, where you could have 30% capacity. So we're actually going to change kind of and I think I've sent some diagrams to the board, change the location of where we will seat students and award diplomas, so we can actually use seating on both sides to maximize the number of people that will be in attendance. Ms. Asher, Ms. Rossi have worked really hard on that. With After Prom as well, they're helping us out. We'll have a digital screen behind the stage to help improve the experience for our students and our parents. So that's continues to be ongoing. And then lastly, I wanted to just come back to something I talked about at our last meeting, mentioned that we did not have the authority to offer as a school district a completely online virtual option. Wasn't sure kind of where the state legislature was going to go with that. I've seen no progress on that from the legislative side of things. We did get an email from the Ohio Department of Education last week that essentially said kind of we don't have the legislative authority to do it. And there are a couple of options for us to consider. One's alternative schools. The second is a blended learning declaration. Third would be credit flexibility. And fourth would be what is called an innovative education pilot program. I reviewed these options a little more in depth with cabinet and our administrators, and it looks like our best option is going to be filing for the blended learning declaration, twofold. One, that might allow us the flexibility to, depending on how we create this, offer some level of virtual learning for those parents that are interested. But two, also accommodate some of the blended learning courses that are going to be proposed to the Board of Education, I believe, at our next meeting at the secondary level. So that declaration is not due, don't hold me to this, I think it's July 1. So we've got some time before we'd have to file that. And it's a little bit of a kind of a chicken and egg, what kind of model do you develop? Do you develop a model and then survey parents and say who's interested in this, or do you survey parents and say who really would want a virtual environment and then try to work from there? So our goal right now is to survey our virtual parents in probably the first week of May to get a kind of an understanding of what the interest level is. We did sit through a presentation by the ESC, who's trying to support schools who will have online virtual options available. That could include a completely online school operated by someone else. It could be also an online content classroom management system that's operated by a teacher, a Chagrin Falls teacher. So we are starting to look at various options. When we get those survey results, we'll be able to kind of roll and share with the Board of Education. I'd love to survey sooner than that. I just don't know that it would make sense because things change kind of so quickly. I think if the vaccine does come out and it's available for high school students, that's certainly going to impact the numbers. So that's a lot. I just wanted to give you an update on kind of some of the work that's going on that will be coming to the board in the next 2 2 months or so. Any questions for me?
We were moving in this direction with the blended learning anyway. Is that application or whatever you called it, something you would have had to do on an annual basis regardless?
Yeah, as you pointed out, we were trending towards presenting this to the board in March of last year. And if the board were to approve it, we would have applied for that waiver last year. So it kind of aligns with work we were going to do anyways. Obviously, I think all of our perspectives on virtual, online, blended, maybe a little bit different today than they were a year ago. So look forward to digging into those conversations with Ms. Asher and Mrs. DeSenza at our next meeting. And if there's no more questions, that would conclude my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have audience and community participation. I was not notified by anybody. Ms. Bruno, were you notified?
I was not.
Okay, and Dr. Hunt?
I was not.
Okay. All right, so we'll move past this section. If anybody does have, any public does have a desire to have their comments read in front of the board or to speak in front of the board, you can always contact Dr. Hunt, Ms. Brudno, or myself. We'll move on next to consent agenda. If I could have a motion for consent agenda items 7A through 7G.
So
So
moved.
moved. I'll
Second.
second.
Take your pick, Ashley.
One.
Did you get that, Ashley? Or maybe they could rock, paper, scissors to see who wins the first. All right.
I got it.
Any questions? Any discussion about the items? Okay. Ms. Bruno, if you please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations. If I could have a motion for item 8A through 8G.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Kay. And a second.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Dr. Hunt, if you wouldn't mind walking through some of these.
I did in item A have a conversation with Nancy Kevern today to say this might not be approved by the board. So down, we'll see where that goes legally.
Should we
So
pull that one out?
Mike is not on screen because he's crying right now. I just want to thank Nancy. Nancy was a long-time teacher at Chagrin Falls Intermediate School. Some of you were not on the board when we started to pilot one-to-one way back in the day, and she was in the first grade level that ever piloted one-to-one computing. And she has taken the journey with technology all the way through to where we're at today. And a lot of what we have done is obviously due to the hard work and dedication of Nancy Kevern. She's a great professional, but I would tell you she's a better person, and we're going to miss having her around. And it's pretty hard to negotiate when someone throws grandchildren on the table. So we wish her the best with that. And I know Mike will work hard on replacement and keeping the program going forward. Item B's, C, and D are all recommendations to approve for staffing for the learning labs that we are offering. I'm sorry, I did not poll the current enrollment, but we're having a very good response, especially at our elementary K-6 to participate in that learning lab. So that's a good thing. And just also point out that we're using kind of federal funds, the relief funds that were coming into the district to pay for that program. Item E is an employment separation agreement release. And item F are the policies that Mary Kay mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know, Mary Kay, if there was anything specific we wanted to discuss here. I think a lot of this is cleanup and, as Mary Kay said, related to COVID.
Yeah, I mean, my wording is very minor. I think the only real add to a policy is to the preschool policy. we're required to now, certain employees applying have to be screened for tuberculosis. And that's about the most meatiest change tonight, I think. So anyone have any questions on anything else?
Bob, I know we're using federal funds, but ballpark or Ashley, how much will the extra programming that we're offering our students cost, do you think?
I did not total that out. I
I
mean,
don't remember either. I know we talked about it. It's a portion of the CARES funding. It's not a penny should be spent from general fund. It's all, I mean, we've received way more in federal funding than we need for this. Part of it may go into even the ESSER 2 money for next fiscal year, which has not been allocated yet either. So we're starting to buy supplies and get all of those things using this year's funds. So it's not going to hit the general fund at all. I believe it was ballpark of like.
I can pull that figure. We had,
Yeah, if you give me 5 minutes, I can.
Or you can email me tomorrow.
Okay.
I think that it's a great thing that we're doing for our students, and I would just like to be able to quantify it in case anyone asks me about it.
yeah, so two things. I want to say the numbers between 120, 130 grand. We had written this up as a proposal to go to support organizations with originally, and then we had additional federal funding come through and, you know, had the opportunity to use that. So I know we're going to be well under our utilization of those federal funds. And I think, is it 2 years, Ashley, you have to spend those dollars? So there'll be some other things to support student intervention due to COVID learning loss, HVAC, things of that nature that the district we consider going forward.
Yeah, and initially, you know, we started using all of this for these supplies and the screens and, you know, things that we needed in place. And now all of that is pretty much done. So a lot of school districts now have some of this money and they're looking for what can we do that's actually going to make an impact on students. And this is one of the allowable things. So it made the most sense. And I will send you the dollar amount. I think, Bob, I thought your number sounded a little high, but I could be wrong. I have a lot of numbers floating around in my head right now.
All right, I'll pull it up after the meeting. We'll get it over to you, Sharon.
Bob, I have a follow-up as well. Would you mind just giving a high-level overview of the Summer Learning Lab for those who might be wondering what we're talking about?
Yes, we are offering a program that includes transportation for any student that would have been in Tier 2 intervention services. So Tier 1 are services that a normal classroom teacher would do, differentiating in the classroom. Tier 2 is we're actually starting to pull students out, not identified as special education, but we're trying to intervene and give them a dose of additional support so they don't hit to Tier 3. So it's any student in Tier 2, some students in Tier 3 that don't qualify for extended school year. They'll be brought in for a half day. The focus of it is going to be on reading and math skill-based supports. And what's nice about this is instead of just offering kind of general, you know, a general program that you'd offer like online or, you know, in a summer, we know who these kids are and we know what their skill deficits are, so we can personalize that a little bit more. So we're hoping, and I think we're starting to see that providing transportation is helpful to the parents and getting them to and from school. And I think we've talked before, we've over 17 years, we've tried summer programming in a lot of different ways and shapes, and it just hasn't floated and been successful. And this one really seems to be catching on. And hopefully this is something we can maybe continue to build on going forward. And I should say, because of these funds, there will be no charge to parents.
Yeah, I believe it's five weeks, correct, Bob? I think there's 3 weeks in June and 2 weeks in August. And
Right.
you can do only 4, but you can do 5 as well.
Thank you.
Last item would be item G on there, and that is moving forward with our phase 2 HVAC project. And I think the board is, you know, I try to keep the board updated and put some, you know, comments regarding that project in here. I would just say at a very high level, this has been vetted through capital planning. It is a planned project, and we are recommending kind of moving forward at this time to get the work done.
I just have one other question, Bob, regarding item A. We had talked about, I guess the question is there a possibility in seeking this new hire, nobody will ever replace Nancy, but to incorporate some of the work that Mike gets pulled away to do to, fix computers and the tech level work? Is there a potential to incorporate that into this position, or do you think we might need to add that position back that we had to eliminate?
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit and had some conversations. I believe this person needs to really stay on the teaching and learning side, and we need to bring in additional support on the break fix side. Now we have integrated some of that with David Kimball out of the Innovation Lab, but Mike and I are kind of working on a proposal that would bring the teaching and learning person into kind of the Innovation Lab as well to help support the work down there. But that should be forthcoming to you in the next week or two.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the gratitude to Ms. Kevern for, I've heard a lot of positive things about her integration of technology in with students and teachers. So very thankful we had our time with her. Any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Brudno, if you'd please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Burrows,
Yes.
and Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right, moving right along. If I could have a motion for treasurer's recommendation 9A through 9B.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, mine is very short and sweet tonight. I have one then and now, item A, for $3,000 to the Mayfield Road Drive-In. This was just, we didn't get the purchase order in there in time, and when they made the phone call, that constituted placing the order and created the invoice date. And item B is disposal of some equipment. There's some furniture, tables and shelving and things like that located at the PAC stage that we would like to dispose of. I'm recommending your approval.
Short and sweet, the way we like it. Thank you very much. If you would please call the roll.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right. Is there any other business that anyone would like to bring up for this meeting tonight?
I just wanted to bring, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just quickly, we are going to bring a presentation forward with a recommendation regarding 7/12 schedule at our next Board of Education meeting. I think I put in the board report last week, but please, if you have any questions or things that you would like us to have kind of prepared for you in that presentation to help streamline it, feel free to share those thoughts with me, and I'll make sure we cover that in the presentation.
Just wanted to propose an agenda item for a future meeting with regard to Ed Choice and its impact on school districts, as well as the Fair Funding Act, and whether this board wants to take any action to support those two initiatives. So I've already talked to Mrs. Brudno about finding time in a future agenda for us to receive a presentation about that. I can share some draft resolution language and things like that. We'll give some background material out to the board prior to that. Do you have anything to add, Mrs. Brudno?
I don't believe so. I will send out information on the fair funding plan. I think it's been in a couple board reports, but it's kind of gaining traction again. So I'll send that out again this week. And there is already a sample resolution floating around out there that I can provide as well.
And I think the same with Ed Choice. There's some language that we could just take a look at. I think these are important initiatives that we should be fully informed about and and discuss as a board.
I was also going to bring up the fair funding discussion. Ashley and I attended the meeting last week with State Senator Serino, who's the new state senator, and I think there was 60 some constituents on the call, which were members of either administration or boards in portions of Lake, Geauga, and Portage County. It was a very good meeting. It was really good. And I know there's another meeting coming up that we are also invited to, since we kind of overlap state Senate districts. I believe Monday, April 19th, there's a meeting with State Senator Dolan. I'm happy to attend that one as well, but if anyone else wants to attend that one, it was nice to hear from, other districts saying, why it's important to them.
Do you have a time for that one on the 19th?
You know what, I believe it, I want to say 2, but I'm not sure. Let me look.
Did we get an email about that?
I did. Oh, it's at 7 p.m.
Okay.
That one's 7 p.m.
Right. I'd like to attend that, so I'll RSVP.
Okay.
And of course, anybody else is welcome to as well, but I wasn't able to make the last one, so I'd like to attend that.
You got DEIJ that night.
Of course we do.
Okay.
Right at 7 o'clock, right?
6. So maybe you can cut
Oh,
out.
there you go. Maybe I can juggle.
But yeah, but it's still, people are still calling it Cup Patterson, even though it's not called that anymore, but it's pretty much the same. But so we'll see how it changes from the House to the Senate. House Bill 1, so which is interesting that it was House Bill 1, the first bill of this cycle. So maybe this is the year. I don't know.
We're a persistent bunch.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for other business? All right. Seeing none, our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 21st at 6 p.m. Here on Zoom.
As far as we know, right? So I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22. The Chagrin Falls Board of Education will go into executive session for the sole purpose of consideration of the following matters: to consider one or more as applicable with respect to a public employee or official employment, and also preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation and other terms or conditions of their employment.
Okay, if we could have a second.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. And Ms. Brudno, if you'd please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole.
Yes.
All right, and we expect no further action after executive session.